Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Super League fans across the world, from the Super League towers. In the studio with us tonight, we have a Palmerthinaikos manager, Chris. Good evening, Chris.
Good evening, Martin. Good evening, fans.
And from the Churchtown Massive headquarters, we are joined by Kieran. Good evening, Kieran.
How you doing? How's it going?
Thanks very much for joining, guys. I was going to say welcome to the show, Chris, for the first time, but you have been on before. A couple of times even, haven't you? I think so, at least once.
I I think so. Yeah. I think my debut involved an analogy between Booths and Marks and Spencers, so it was instantly forgettable.
Right, fair enough. Either way, let's come to you first. Then, anyway, when we were talking about last week's result, obviously early doors, so it's difficult to say what will happen for the rest of the season. But I presume that that your start as a manager and the result for your team was fairly satisfying. I mean, you mentioned it already in the blog, but perhaps you could elaborate a little bit on what especially pleased you in that game.
Well, I think it's definitely Riquelme and Cole both scoring highly and both scoring goals. Obviously, I've been given a lot of grief by some of the other managers for some of the transfers. Um, Obviously, I dipped my toe in the water trying to misunderstand Boise and have a do with him, but that's all been smoothed over. So now I can let my football do the talking. But yeah, I think the formation was a bit adventurous. It's not something I've ever done on a home save, but the fact that it kind of worked, it paid off, and I obviously look like I'm going to attack teams and score goals this season. Sort of, yeah, really sort of back my thinking with it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, keeping a clean sheet with a relatively attacking formation. I know it's not quite one at the rear like Palmerthinaikos probably lined up with, but they still had the six players in that defensive line, and you're only lining up with four. So I guess keeping a clean sheet despite being so attacking, it's got to be pretty satisfying. How much of that do you think is down to your new signing from Bolton, Udese? He did pretty well, didn't he?
He did. He had a fantastic game. Looking at his stats and speaking with Fyife about the blog, he had a lot of cleared headers and defended quite well. But the one slight concern I guess I did have is that Cannavaro and Udeze had to have absolute blinders to keep a clean sheet. So I do worry that although this formation worked in the first game, that I actually might be liable to concede a few goals this season.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, it's possible with Cannavaro winning 8 out of 8 tackles, Udesa winning 4 out of 5, and five of them in total are key tackles, and even more so with the headers in the air, obviously coming up against perhaps a, a team with a stronger attacking lineup than Chudley. Maybe Rossini was a little bit of a lightweight, maybe up against Vieri and some of the stronger boys. They could maybe struggle a little bit, but we'll obviously see that when we get there. And your two strikers were perhaps the only not poor performances, but considering how well the rest of the side did, to see. I mean, you got an assist from Ebisanda, obviously, but nothing from Thierry Henry. Any concerns over that, or are you happy as long as the goals keep flowing?
To be honest, yeah, I'm happy as long as the team win. Although one of the things, I obviously wasn't going to admit publicly was I did think Henry was a bit quiet and Ebe didn't really do much up until that assist. So I think that's one thing I've got to do is maybe tweak this formation to try and get the best out of some of the forwards because that's really where all the firepower is in
Mm.
this team.
hmm Well, I guess as long as Joe Cole keeps himself at the top of the of the goal scorers charts, then you're going to be happy with that. We'll have a look at Churchtown's performance. So, Kieran, that was a bit of a was it a double comeback? I think yeah, it was a double comeback against Astor Athletic. Any nerves at all, or were you quite confident that you were going to win it in the last 5 minutes?
No, it was a very nervy affair. I think you kind of said it at the time in commentary. It was kind of 20, 30 minutes into the second half, and the goals weren't coming, even though we had a lot of pressure being put on. And then Materazzi came up with the goal, and I just thought it was one of those times where, oh, look, we've been champs and just have to sweep it under the carpet. But fair play to the boys. Larson and Elizadebe dug in and got the vital goals to give us the win.
Yeah, and perhaps a little bit surprising that Barry Ferguson didn't get an assist, but there were assists for other people. So Edgar Davids got an assist. That's got to be relatively pleasing to see him doing his creative bit there. But everyone doing quite well. I mean, you play with a not a was going to say a similar formation, but you also play with a limited number of defenders. But yeah, good performance from your defensive guys there. We didn't see Dame. What's his name again? Duff. We didn't see Mike Duff though. I was perhaps a little bit surprised, but I guess he won't feature unless you play with wing backs.
Yeah, that's probably the case. I think himself and Coco in particular, was a huge performer for us last year. So when I decide to break out the formation where we use the wing backs, Mike Duff will definitely be involved, and I'm confident he'll be a key part of our season to come.
And Olisa Deby getting a goal. I think there was a couple of mentions about him potentially being one of the star players this season as well, or one of the scorers, because it's not always been yeah, you've always scored plenty of goals, but you've not really had, like, say, one consistent, apart from Barry Ferguson, obviously. None of the strikers have really seemed consistent. So are you hoping for something like that from Olisa Deby, or is that too much to ask, considering, I mean, he's 23 and perhaps not as experienced as Van Nistelrooy, but what are your expectations for him this season?
Yeah, I like to chop and change my strikers kind of as it goes. That's probably one of the reasons why I don't have one kind of goal scorer that usually gets 20 plus goals in a year. It's kind of
Mm,
usually shared out, and it's usually kind of like 8 to 12 goals kind of spread across. Yeah, no, I am really hopeful. I like the look of Elizadebe, Larson, and Ruud van Nistelrooy up front. I
hmm
think they were the most consistent ones last year.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know Elizadebe had to kind of wait a while for his chance last year, but as soon as I got him in, he kind of started banging in the goals and doing the business. So he hasn't really taken the foot off the gas. So long may it continue.
Yeah. And you let was it Owen that you let go in the window?
Yeah, every time I played Owen, he was really disappointing in the
hmm
games, and I just didn't really see, like, I wasn't willing to give him a second chance. So I just said, sell him off to Dragons. They came in with a good cash offer. I just said, look, let's do the deal, let's get it done, and move on.
Yeah, and without dwelling too much on the other results, Chris, one or two games that stood out. Otherwise, I think, I mean, I don't want to I don't want to I don't want to shit on Valen and Bolton Phoenix, but they kind of sort of breezed into it with fairly secure wins in their games. BTEC, if I can ask you about them briefly, BTEC Troopers, they seem to have gotten off to a good start. His squad is really strong this year. Ian's BTEC side. How do you see them doing? Do you see them improving on last year? I mean, where are there any weaknesses in his side, really?
Do you know what, this might be a touch controversial, but if anything, I think they're possibly a bit weak in terms of the middle of the park, like in terms of creativity. Agahowa for me is always flattered to deceive on either 3.960 or 3.968. He's never really been prolific. Emerson, I've always seen as more of a sort of DMC. So I wonder if with BTEC, if you shut down the wings, do you shut down the creativity of the middle of the park? That would be my sort of take on it. But as you say, they've got an unbelievably strong squad. They are hard to break down, and I do think Ian's finally got something. He's finally got a balanced formation where there will be a threat. Like I said, for me, I think there's just that cloud hanging over the creativity piece. Like
Mm.
if you take Emerson out, who can you really put in the middle of the park like a Barry Ferguson or dare I say a Joe Cole or an Edward, that kind of person, somebody with a bit something different about him.
Yeah, no, that's a fair. I mean, I think that was they were struggling even more for it before they brought in Emerson. So there is improvements in that area, obviously, but a fair point, and obviously a good result for BTEC there first. Kieran, let's go to this. I mean, RC Celtic were involved in a super dramatic start to the season last year. I think it was a 4-2 win against BTEC, even though they were down to 9 men or something crazy like that, and they're involved in another many goal thriller on last Sunday. Um, Surprised to see that the new assistant manager hasn't had an impact at Dragons yet, or are Ardsley showing what they really can do? I mean, they're another side, a little bit like BTEC, who do have very, very good players, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at Ardsley, he's got Nicky Forenko and Tom Madeira off to a really good start in their debuts, and all across their team, it's just an incredibly strong team. Candela and Zauri on the wings are two incredibly strong players. Vieira, arguably the best DMC or player in the game. Nicky Forenko in behind a trio of world class strikers. Like, the only weakness I can really see is the goalkeeper who had a six last week, but they
Mm.
managed to get away with it. Yeah, I think Ardsley, they were very disappointing last year because they had a strong team last year. But if he can find that formation and the consistency, which I really think he lacked last year, then they're top six contenders for sure.
And Dragons, on the other hand, I mean, they I don't know what obviously what the considerations for the tactics haven't changed, let's say that much, but maybe it was just Carini having a bad day. But they did allow RC Celtic a huge number of chances in that game. I mean, I suppose with the team changing so much, they gotta take a few days to or a few games to perhaps find their feet. I mean, a whole new right hand side almost with Simon Davies, this Song Young Cook guy, and Brosek. Positives for Dragons, but they need to sort out that defense, don't they?
Oh yeah, definite positives there. I think some of their struggles earlier on and into the middle of last season were their goal scoring. They seem to play quite well and always seem to kind of come out on the wrong ends of draws and defeats
Hmm.
where they were actually putting on the pressure. But now they've got Brozek and they've got Viduka firing slightly. Um, yeah, it's a big improvement on last year, and they were unlucky in this game.
Yeah.
But yeah, definite improvement seen.
Hmm. Excellent. And what else have we got? As the Church Town we spoke about, this one we've covered. This one doesn't really. Midlothian Valen, we'll kind of skip that one. Maybe just quickly have before we start tonight's action, we can have a look at Swindon Devil against the Somerset Sloth. So the Swindon off to a good start despite being despite playing a strikerless formation. Chris, shithousery or creativity or what's this?
Do you know what? I have a little confession here. So in the Pescara save that our French colleague Nucleo asked me about, I was really struggling at one point, and I did do this bit of shithousery and even sent a picture to Ryan saying, "I think this actually works," you know. And then lo and behold, Fifey's used it to great effect and it's worked. So whilst it is a tad shithousery on Ronaldo, you know, one of the world's greatest number nine, saying playing the hole, I think this actually works, you know.
Hmm.
Kind of how the DMC is one of the crucial positions on the game. I think by sticking some forwards in AMC and getting them to run on, it's one of those little niches that you can take advantage of, I think. The only thing I'd probably say is maybe Ebiede there. There's possibly no need for him to run into that gap
Mm.
with that arrow. I'd maybe just keep that sort of, well, no arrow and be a bit solid. But I think he might actually do quite well with this formation this season if
Yeah,
he
well,
sticks to it.
I
we'll see.
agree. I think it's a really, really solid one. I think having Ronaldo closer to the action gets him on the ball a little bit more. And he's just such a strong player, similar to Seydorf, who got a debut goal last week as well.
Yeah, well, I think Kieran, if you look at, I think Elmander, Ronaldo, and Seedorf, haven't they all got decent dribbling or decent sort of pace between? You know, all three of them, I think, have got decent stats to play in that kind of role anyway. So I think Fifey's done a good job there, trying to get the best out of that squad.
Yeah, it's definitely, he's got players that are in their correct positions, which was definitely a slight concern for him last year. But this seems to work for the players that he has, and he got the result last week.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely an important win for him to get off to a good start. Sloth struggling with this kind of odd formation that we're probably not going to see again.
Yeah, Rob's kind of come out with a few strange looking formations, but to be honest, sometimes it comes off and they can kind of come out and get 4 goals, and like we're all kind of thinking, how's that happened? But didn't happen in this game. I'm sure there'll be a couple of changes for the game today. I think change of keeper first and foremost has been done. Uh, Rob he can be so strong on his day, but I think consistency is where he typically gets let down.
Yeah, I mean that was certainly the one of the issues last year was definitely consistency for him. But I have a sneaky suspicion that he's gone back to something a little bit tried and tested tonight. So we'll see how that how that pays off. Obviously we've got some interesting game coming. Oh, I didn't even notice that. I was going to say I'm not going to prepare anything with what order we do the games in. We'll just do them alphabetically. But you're the two last games, so that's worked out pretty well. I was going to say I think Rob's gone back to a little bit more of a tried and tested setup, but he's away at Asta, so that could be a difficult one. We are going to kick off the evening's action, and we're going to start at Ardsley. I'll see if I can remember how to do this. Oh, I always struggle with this. No, there we go. So we've got Ardsley at home to Valen United. Let me just see. Yeah, I think I've done all the changes. It's been a little bit of a hectic week with, as you've probably seen on the kind of Twitter thing, the whole Championship Manager thing has like taken over everybody's life because no one has anything else to do apart from obviously working a few hours if they are so lucky. So yeah, it's been a little bit of a busy one, but I do believe that I have most of the teams correct and updated. Yeah, it definitely looks like it. So fingers crossed. Anyway, Arsenal against Valen United. That could be an interesting one. I mean, Valen were very, very dominant in the first game, obviously, away to Midlothian, but who struggled to score. But they do have a very defensive formation. That's definitely not the case for Arsenal here. Chris, your suggestions, ideas, predictions about this one. Strong defensive Valen team and Arsenal's attacking formation. How do you see that one going?
Well, depending on what tactics Hodgie's done with Ardsley about getting the ball from sort of DMC up to his forwards, because Valen, I think, can pretty much mark man for man all his forwards. So depending how he moves the ball through, he's either going to have a lot of success or none at all. So with that, I think Andreas has probably got something up his sleeve, and I suspect another 2-0 Valen.
Let's have a look at balance formation. Kieran, what do you think is that gap between the defensive half of Ardsley and the attacking half? Is that going to be too difficult to bridge with the defensive midfielders and the midfielders that Valen have got, or do you think they can somehow bypass them?
No, I think he can bypass them and cause Valen a lot of trouble. Although Valen seems to kind of keep their consistent, just strong home performance going last week. It'll be interesting to see how they get on away from home. But it should be a great game. Both teams are really strong, and yeah, I don't know. I can't call it 2-all
Mm.
draw.
Yeah, and Valence obviously Andres has gone back to his. I mean, he gave Del Piero a chance. He gave I think he put Jeremy's in as well. I think Jeremy's
Yeah.
worked okay, but I think he just preferred to have Nakata back. So he's pretty much the same as last season with just the one change. So a little bit like yourself, not a whole lot of personnel changes in the side, but it'll be interesting to see what happens in this one. Um, I'm just checking Alf's prediction. 1-1. I think there might be more goals in it, but let's kick it off and have a look how this one pans out. A lot of early possession for Valen and Saviola obviously back. Del Piero did not work out for him at all. Oof. I'm
Ardsley are staying in it anyway, coming back with a bit of pressure.
Yeah, I was gonna say it looks as if they've got a counter or two, and Tomadera definitely had a chance there. Cafu picks up a yellow. Elisa Rasu with a long range shot. I think Elisa Rasu scored in the first game as well. Saeed on a yellow
Yeah, he
now.
did.
Oh,
Yeah.
keen to Shevchenko, I think it was, and that's the first goal of the game for Valen there. But definitely they're creating a bunch. I mean, they are super strong, Valen United, obviously, but a little bit of creativity from Ardsley, but not really enough to threaten. Apparently, only one shot on target. I think it looked a little bit more even, sort of from the overview, but apparently not. Let's have a look at the Valen side. Performance-wise, oh, it was Saviola who got the assist. Fiora and Totti only scoring sixes, so there are obviously things to improve on, but otherwise it looks as if they've continued their kind of a dominant form that they showed in the first game. Chris, your thought on Valence first half performance?
A little bit as I expected with my pre-match thinking, to be honest. I thought Fiore and Totti might have done a bit better, but as you can see, I think Roy Keane doing okay, Lizarazu doing okay, Cafu doing okay, and Nakata doing okay. Valen are obviously moving that ball through the midfield a lot better than Ardsley.
Mm. Not a huge amount to do for Roy Keane. Actually, we normally see him with a lot more tackles, but I suppose they are three up against the kind of Nikiforenko on who's a little bit on his own there. So maybe not too much for them to do. Kieran for Ardsley, Patrick Vieira doing quite well in the defensive midfield at tackling and stopping people, but they've got to do better attacking in the second half. Tristan Morientes and Tomadera on sixes and sevens, and no shots from Tristan and Morientes, more importantly.
Yeah, he just needs to get the ball through the midfield a little better, find a way to get it to Nikiforenko's feet and let him play from there. I thought the stats flattered Valen a bit there.
Mm,
It seemed a lot more even than Ardsley only having 2 shots and Valen having 8.
hmm
So I think if Hodgie can get himself in the game in the second half, I think there's definitely an equaliser there. But not the worst performance considering the low amount of shots.
True.
But yeah, he definitely want an improvement in the second half.
hmm So let's kick off the second half and see if they can find a way back in it. An early goal would be good for Ardsley, obviously, but no guarantees, especially against Valen United, who obviously kept a clean sheet away from home in their first game. And they're off to a flyer in the second half. Shevchenko getting the first goal of the second 45. Um,
Be tough to come back from that now.
yeah, I mean they did have a good comeback against the Dragons, obviously, but it is Valen United are a slightly different proposition, I think. And it looks as if I think they had about 20-25 minutes of good pressure there in the second half, sort of from 55 until like 75 ish, but
Yeah.
didn't really get anything out of it. Oh, and there's Nakata with pretty much the last kick of the game.
Jeez.
Oh no, that wasn't the last kick of the game at all. That was plenty. Two
Oh wow.
goals in added time. That's
Two
perhaps
with nine. Two in a
perhaps a
minute.
bit cruel.
Yeah, that's proper kick in the teeth. That.
I mean, I don't know, Chris. Valen United looks as if Andreas is pretty determined not to let what happened last season happen to him again. And that's 6 goals and no conceded in the first 2 games, and both of them are away games. That's a pretty impressive start from Valen. I'm sure you'd agree.
It is. It is. Don't get me wrong. On paper, it's a very impressive start. But again, I'll keep coming back to it. He's not played anybody who's put somebody in the middle of the park yet. I mean, when he played Ryan last year, although he did get champed a bit, Ryan had Veron in the middle of the park. So that's a big difference maker as to having nobody and then Ibrahim Saeed behind him.
Yeah, true. I suppose Dragons doesn't really have a creative player in there either. I mean, they do have the 2 AMCs, but they don't have like a central midfielder to kind of um, put any kind of pressure on those two, Nakata and Fiore. They seem to be kind of running the show a little bit. Nakata, Kieran, man of the match. Anything that you would have predicted before the start?
He's a good player, but I wouldn't have thought he'd be the standout. But yeah, great performance, goal and 2 assists. Yeah, that was really strong. Those stats are fairly excellent, and yeah, he seems like he's off to a flyer this year.
Yeah, I can't really. I was gonna see if I could find any kind of weaknesses. I mean, Fiore didn't have a great game, but I mean, he still had 2 key passes and
Yeah,
won 2 of his 3 tackles.
and he does so well to get a tune out of Cafu and Lizarazu, not in their wing positions. Like he
hmm
plays them in the center and just has them running out wide. But you would think that might hamper them a bit. But with an 8 and a 9 today, he's found a way to make it work.
Yeah, definitely. And Totti getting a goal as well will please him no end because I know he thinks highly of Totti and he's
Yeah.
perhaps been a little bit disappointed with his performances last season, but plenty to come from him, I'm sure. So yeah, decent start to the evening. No red cards. I mean, I had hope, not hoped, obviously. I shouldn't hope for that, but a little bit of controversy. So if you notice the name of the referee, these games are meant to be played simultaneously, but obviously, as you'll see coming on this evening. Jerry Connolly's in charge of I think 3 of them. So there is that. Next up we've got Astor Athletic. Let's see if we can quickly pop over to Astor. I feel like I've made all the required changes. It does look like it. Yep. And they're up against the Somerset Sloths, who we spoke about. Right, who wants to go first with Astor Athletic and the old Astor Athletic formation? Kieran, maybe. You've played Alf a couple of times already. Um, he's gone back to his original formation after having some relative success with playing with wing backs. What do you think? What do you put that down to? Is it a desire for this tactic to work, or does he think it is actually better?
He might just be trying to kind of keep consistent with it. Like he played pretty well last week, like 2 goals at home, pretty unlucky against ourselves. So maybe don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's pretty strong. He's brought Vicente in, which I think is the mystery man he was talking about.
Hmm.
But yeah. Look, it's the looking at it myself. It seems like it's the same old tactic. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a little unsure about it.
Hmm.
Uh, Vogel hasn't played that well in the Super League. It was pretty poor last year, if I remember. Rui Costa started quite well. Brujink and Smith on their day. Smith has been pretty mediocre for a while, though.
Hmm.
He started off really well last year. I don't know if he's continued that. I think he's on borrowed time now. He hasn't played that well for me, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Bishkan's a good player. I don't know about Babel, to be honest. There's a couple of weaknesses there.
Yeah, and I think the mystery man that Alf's referring to is the goalkeeper, who's
Oh,
Pleticosa, who's come in for Lehmann, who's been dropped after conceding three. Although he was probably the best keeper in the league last season with an 8 average in those 16 games after he came in from Bartes, he's been dropped in favor of the young Croatian. So we'll see how that goes for Alf. Sloths, as I alluded to initially, they've gone back to this formation, Chris. So I don't know if you've seen this, but I think that was the formation that they had the most success with, and I think Balak scored like 7 goals from this position as well. So we'll see how that pans out. What do you make of the sloth formation?
I must admit, I've got a lot of time for Robbie. He just seems genuinely batshit crazy about everything he does. And to be fair, yeah, this formation, you can tell he's at least having a go for it. I'd personally maybe drop Duff and Salakovic back a bit and have Arrows going forward just to try and give it a bit more balance.
Hmm.
But the back three look pretty solid. His two holding players are solid. Balak can be a bit of a revelation on the game, and Crespo and Kesman should score goals for fun. So you'd think that this should work, but I just think he could get exploited down the wings on this one.
I think you're one of the first persons who's had anything positive to say about their Balak. I mean, how he got 689 out of scoring in nearly half of his games. I mean, I don't know, but not a lot of people seem to have a huge amount of time for Balak in the game. But I mean, he on his day he probably can do a job. Um, yeah, so we'll see how that one pans out. I'm just checking for any kind of predictions in the chat, but people seem to have started talking about other things. Either way,
I think Astor with a 3-0 home win, I think.
3-0
Do
home
you know
win for
what?
Asta.
I'm going to be a touch controversial here, and I think Sloths 2-1.
Fyife says 0-0.
Yeah, I've seen that. Well, we'll see. We'll see. Fife is hoping for everyone else to get a draw so that his wins will count for more. I'm sure. Um, let's kick this one off and see if we can get the goal. See how Pleticosa does in his debut, and see if Sloth's change of formation will have helped. Yeah, it's for me it's difficult to call. I'll just say nothing. That's probably I should be impartial anyway. Oh, he's still on playoff speed from last season. Good early start for Asta Athletic here. Create a couple of chances. It'll be interesting to see if he can get Boyer reproducing the form that he had last season. Obviously, he was incredibly dominant in the first 7 or 8 games, like almost a Barry Ferguson level in those first 7 or 8 games.
Almost.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wonder if it's worth him giving Bowyer a free roll if he hasn't already, actually, and maybe pushing Zanetti out wide. I mean, I still can't get over he plays Bishkan at
Oh,
centre
there
half.
he is.
Oh, well, I'll eat my words.
The man of the moment, the man they're all talking about. Yeah, Lee Boyer obviously doing what he does. Oh my goodness, yeah, that's not gone well for Sloss, that first half performance there. Not a single shot. Yeah, that's a little bit disappointing, I think, but a very strong Asta performance here. I mean, I say a very strong performance. There's a bunch of sevens in here, but Lee Boyer is definitely doing the job in midfield. Chris, you were talking about Lee Boyer. I'll I'll let you continue.
Yeah, basically, I was saying, I wonder if Alfie either needs to give him a free roll or if he has given him the sort of free roll option. But obviously, he's been quite pivotal to the way Astor have played there. I mean, everybody else, I know there's a couple of eights and stuff there, but nobody else seemed to do anything sort of special.
Mm,
I think, yeah, Bowie is definitely pulling the strings for these guys.
hmm And for Sloths, Kieran, some kind of there's a disconnect somewhere, isn't there, from getting the ball to from someone to someone else, and getting it up to the strikers. I mean, they have had some touches, but it's been a little bit lackluster for them. How do you see the comment Chris made earlier about maybe pulling the wing back, or sorry, the wingers back a little bit? Do you think that would have made a difference, or is it just a tough matchup for them?
Yeah, I probably agree with his comment. I haven't have too much experience playing wingers that high up the pitch personally, so
Mm,
I just don't know how well it works. But like I say, last year I think he came up with it. I think we came up against him and they beat us well, and I was shocked. But he makes it work. Yeah, I don't know what the disconnect is. Not a lot happening in midfield. Balak's on a 6, which is
mm.
standard. No shots kind of speaks for itself. And Bronckhorst playing a 6.
Simeone completing
Simeone
3 out of
playing a
11
6.
passes.
Like if your DMs and your midfield are only getting 6s, there's something going wrong there. No one's had a key pass.
Yeah, not a single key pass in the first half, not a single shot on target, and not a single shot off target either. So, I guess they're doing okay on tackles, but I mean, let's kick off the second half and see if Asta can build on that lead, or if Sloths can come up with a sucker punch and get something out of this one. It did not look like it in the first half, but you never say never. Obviously,
Already a bit of a improvement there, it looked like.
it
Oh,
didn't
jeez.
last long though. And there's Johan Vogel, who
Oh,
obviously hasn't done particularly well. For
Jesus, I was saying about Smith and Vogel before the game, and sort of both of them come in with a goal.
Oof, and Kessman got a goal disallowed for offside there. So at least they've had something going forward in the second half, Somerset. But actually, a few chances has been a little bit more even since the third goal. But they just haven't found a way through yet, or they did, but that was obviously from an offside position. Okay, very strong Asta performance there. Dominant in terms of shots on target and playing in general. Um, it's not so good for Sloth. That's not a great start to the season. Chris, I'll come back to you with Astor here. Johan Vogel, man of the match, surprises me considering his 6.64 average last season for BTEC and no man of the match performances. Um, strong performance across the board, Chris.
oh, sorry, yeah, just
That's
on
all right.
mute. Yeah, very much so. I mean, I'm just looking at the passing stats now. And whilst there's nobody with absolute 100% passing, you can tell that Aston move the ball about quite a lot and try and get it through the field quite quickly. So, I mean, to be fair, I didn't think that formation of Alves would have worked. I thought there'd have been two sort of hemmed in, but he's obviously got them playing really, really well and moving the ball
Mm.
about quickly. Vogel, if you look at his tackle stats, his passes completed, his key passes, he's been an absolute monster, which, like you said, is very unlike his Super League performances.
I mean, 17 tackles. He only won 7 of them, but at least he puts himself about a bit, doesn't he? I mean, that's good, and plenty of passes as well. I suppose, as you say, that is they really did move the ball around quite well there. And Alan Smith getting a goal, that's perhaps important for Alf, because that's one of the things that his stats are quite good. That's one of the things that he was lacking last year, was strikers that could score goals. So Alan Smith getting on the score sheet, that's got to be positive for him as well. Um, Kieran, quick chat about the sloths. Balak, I mean, I praised him, and Chris mentioned that sometimes he can do well. He got a 5. Everyone else did not do well at all. Anything surprising, or anything you had maybe a bit more of a hope for sloths going into this game?
Uh, Aster away is a very difficult game. We should make no bones about that. Not many people go to their ground and get a result.
Mm.
Um, 3-0, 3-0 stuff, but the stats aren't, I don't think, as bad as you make them out, Martin. Only 1-5, a couple of 8s and 7s in there.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
seen a lot, like for a 3-0 defeat, I've seen a lot worse stats than that. Maybe that's a positive that they can take. Um, Crespo still misfiring a bit, I suppose, is a definite work on, and Van Bronckhorst still getting a 6. Your DMs just need to be doing well in this game. It's a key to the game, and
Mm.
a 6 from Van Bronckhorst just isn't good enough at this level.
Right. So back to the drawing board for the sloths, or back to hoping for a home game, which might also have an impact. I mean, we didn't see it as having as much of a say in the second half of the season. But if you think back to the first half of the previous season, the home advantage was pretty spectacular. So we'll see if that turns things around. Obviously, after most teams have had two away games. If anyone was confused why everyone plays like two away games, there was an international fixture in between this one and the last one. So all of the last round's games were cancelled and moved forward, which is why we're getting two away games in a row, and why some people have like four away games in a row later on in the season. The league is a little bit funny like that, and we're just gonna have to suck it up. So we'll see how that goes once we get to that. Next up, we've got BTEC against Swindon Devils. So let's have a look at BTEC Troopers and Swindon Devils. Gilberto Silva is back in the first team for Swindon after Amoruso has been told that he can go and look after whatever it is that's causing him some personal problems. Kieran, we'll start with you for this one. BTEC Troopers, we already spoke about them briefly in the introduction. What do you make of the tactic and the lineup here for Ian's side?
Really like it. Really like it. Was really impressed with before the game last week. Just really like the look of the lineup. Love the back six. Emerson's a top player. One that Astor let go. I think he's one of the best MCs in the game. It's hard to get him because he starts off at Roma, but he's excellent. Agahawa, I hear Chris's concerns. He's hit or miss. He can be really good, but he can be really shy too. Zé Roberto, I think, is the best player in the game. Whenever I manage to get him in my saves, he's comes in, usually has an average rating 8 or above, comes in with 20 odd assists. He's just excellent. Contra's class. Milevski and Dyer in the middle. I just really like the look of their team. I'm fawning over their team at the minute. I'm sure you can hear it.
So I was gonna say, I was just checking the chat. That I was gonna say, it looks like Ryan's been trolling people again. Right? Okay.
Yeah.
I think Ryan, did you convince Fyife that he'd lost 3-0 already? That's harsh. Anyway, Chris, let's have a look at Swindon Devils. So they've dropped the strikerless formation and put the Kluivert and Inzaghi up front. Do you think that's an improvement on what they had last week tactically?
I do like Seedorf being in midfield. I think that's a lot better than Ebiede. But I'd have maybe at least kept two people in the hole. But, on reflection, his team's pretty balanced. Looks solid down the middle. Obviously, I don't know what his tactics are. If you move the ball sort of short passing and maybe hit on the counter, he might have a good chance. But Ronaldo, Kluivert, Inzaghi all up top. Still very, very strong that. Inzaghi just has this knack of scoring goals. But I do wonder how many times he'll be offside.
Yeah, probably more than one is what I'm guessing. Sebastian Mendes, for me, he's a little bit of an unknown quantity, but he did pretty well last season. I mean, 724, not to belittle Fyife, but for a team that finished in the bottom and conceded a truckload of goals, that's a pretty good average for a central defender. Are you familiar with this chap at all? Is it just me who's never heard of him?
No, I am indeed. I've often signed Mendes, actually. You can normally pick him up for about 5 or 6 million from Velez, I think it is. He blossoms into a really, really, really good defender when he gets to about 28 or 29 years old. So maybe Fyife knows that, but him and Montero should form a pretty good partnership at the back. And the only concern I'd have in that back four is Danny Mills.
He is going to get shithoused by Zé Roberto.
there's a chance of that. Predictions. Let's see. Alpha's already been out with a brave 4-4. Do you think that'll be there, Kieran? Do you think that's going to be as many as 8 goals in this one?
There might be, but I think it'll be closer than that. Maybe 4-3 or 3-2 or something like that.
But you're going for a BTEC win.
I think so. I really like the look of their team. I'm rooting for Ian in this one. I think if he can get that team ticking, they can be pretty unstoppable.
And Chris, BTEC or Swindon for you?
Now that I've seen Swindon change formation, I think I'm going to go BTEC 3-1.
Yeah,
Right.
we
Well,
we needed to see a continuation of the shithouse there. It worked so well. We should have kept with it.
I wanted to call them shithouse devils all season.
Yeah.
right. Let's have a look at the at how this one pans out. Let's see. No commentary speed is fine. That's good. Early chance for Swindon, and but Pizarro fires straight back for B-Tech. He's obviously someone that can score a lot of goals. I mean, I pointed it out last week that B-Tech perhaps don't have the strongest strikers. I'd say, for example, Inzaghi and Kluivert for Swindon are better than B-Tech strikers, but it looks as if Pizarro's out to prove me wrong here.
Yeah, Pizarro was excellent in the 2 seasons ago Super League. He got an insane amount of goals for Timor Shamrocks, you'll remember.
Yeah, that's true. Although he did play a crazy attacking formation, didn't he?
Yeah, three up top.
Yeah, who'd do something as as crazy as that?
Evolutionary.
Right. Anyway, that was it. That was the first half done. I mean, apart from the fact that we were chatting about other things, that was quite eventful. Good first half for BTEC Troopers. I thought it was a little bit more even than 9-2 in shots on target, to be honest. Let's have a look at the stats. Kieran, how do you rate BTEC's first half performances? C. Roberto, as you said, shithousing Danny Mills and getting an assist, obviously. But so you were spot on with that. Any other observations?
Surprised that Contra's only on a 6. Hasn't seen as much of the ball down the right, but he's usually a really good performer. Dyer on a 6 again is quite a surprising one. He's normally excellent wherever he goes. Not as good stats as I thought they would deserve. I thought I'd see a couple of 8s going forward, but it's still pretty strong. And the only thing that really matters is they're 1-0 up, I suppose.
True. If we look at the Swindon Devils side, Chris, I mean, I know we probably need to state the obvious that they have to score goals, but what else do you see needing to change in the second half?
Well, just looking at those passes and completed stats, first of all, they need to get on the ball, and then they need to find somebody else in a black and red shirt, because those passing stats are atrocious. Quite simply, they need to get the ball, keep the ball, and do something with it.
Yeah, it's not it's not been great for someone like Seedorf to only to have 8 passes, 5 completed. That's underutilizing his abilities. I mean, of course, he can be put under a lot of pressure, so it's difficult to know. But it's difficult to get a formation working when your central creative midfielders have relatively few passes. Obviously, not seen a lot of Filippo Inzaghi
Zidane
either.
is sorry to cut across you, Martin.
No, sorry.
Zidane is such a strange one in this game, because we all know how good he is, but he just always flatters to deceive when it comes to Super League. I kind of meant to say it before the game. It's like he's nailed on for a 6 when I saw him there. I always think he's going to get a 6, and he usually comes through with it. He's just really weird. He never really seems to be that good.
Yeah, I think he had the last like 2 or 3 games for Swindon. I think he did okay, but obviously he's back to not being great at the moment. Yeah, it's going to be tricky. I mean, they're going to have to get an early goal, Swindon, aren't they, to have any hopes of staying in this if BTEC continue to pile on the pressure. Any of you see a way back for Swindon in this one based on that first half performance?
Absolutely not.
Not for you, Kieran. What do you think? BTEC holding on
I
to
don't
this
know.
one?
I have a I want BTEC to win, but I have a feeling Swindon might do it. They are pretty clinical in front of goal. That's something that they were quite good at last year. They don't put together many kind of double-digit shot performances, but they're usually pretty good at converting them when they do get in front of goal.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens in the second half. See Roberto all over Mills again early on in the in the second half. But there's Ronaldo with his first goal for Swindon Devils. Milevski looking for could potentially be in for a red there. He has been a little bit naughty already. There's a few people on yellows already. But Swindon Devils creating a lot more in the second half.
Martin, after the game, can we check the number of throw-ins if possible? Because I wonder if the shithousery of Swindon, all their misplaced passes are actually just kicking it out of play.
Tony Pulis strikes again. Oof, that was nearly for Zidane. My goodness, that was a much improved second half performance from Swindon Devils there. Um, No, throw-ins are fine. There's nothing untoward in the throw-in section. Let's have a look at the BTEC stats. Se Roberto, as we perhaps spoke about early on, Kieran, they were all over, or he was all over Danny Mills in not a good way for Mills anyway. Bit of a ill discipline in the second half, and just not clinical enough in front of goal. I mean, it was quite a lot of shots they had, wasn't it? I mean, 15 and 12, so it's a solid keeper performance from the Devils, isn't it?
Yeah, it would look like it was just one of those days for BTEC. They just couldn't get the winner, couldn't kind of convert their chances. A lot of them were on target. You can't really say much that they were wasteful, I
Hmm.
suppose you'd say. They were putting them on target, but I suppose Costanzo in the nets, one of Joe Palmer's favourite players, seems to have done the business here. But I don't know. Looking at the stats or his ratings, they're not too bad. A lot of nines, a lot of eights. I think it's just one of those days, unfortunately for Ian.
A bit of a. I mean, you can't really say a champion because they had 5 shots on target themselves, but it is a little bit. Let's have a look at Costanzo. He's obviously done well. Chris, no way back in the second half for Swindon, but yet there was somehow.
Well, do you mean I'm getting quite used to the taste of humble pie, but I think you can see that the passing stats have got a lot better, except Ashley Cole. Danny Mills actually, winning 3 of his tackles, winning a lot of headers as well. Oh no, sorry, only winning 1 header. So he's obviously decent on the deck and not in the air. The midfield started playing a lot better. I think it looks like, particularly Seedorf and Cambiasso. But yeah, it's that man Ronaldo. He's going to be
Hmm.
difficult to stop this year, I think.
I mean, it'd be interesting to see if all of the let's say the experts of us that regularly play the game, we all kind of agree that Ronaldo's a little bit of a, I can't really get anything out of him. He's never anything like he is in real life, etc., etc. And then Fyife actually gets him to 15 goals a season in an AMC role or whatever. That would be something. And I suppose after the showing that they had last season, Swindon Devils with 4 points after 2 games, one of them being away to BTEC, he's got to be taking that, hasn't he? Sorry.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Oh yeah,
I'll
absolutely.
say it.
Mhm.
Sorry, go on, Chris.
I was just going to say, if I was Ian, I think after that first half, I'd definitely be considering this 2 points dropped.
Yeah, I mean, even after with the performance of the players Kieran mentioned as well, they definitely there's a game-winning performance in there somewhere. I think, to be honest, so
Yeah,
just a little bit
with
unlucky for them.
respect to Fifey there, you'd be absolutely raging if you were Ian and you haven't won that game. They were all over them.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but yeah, no credit to Fifey for digging in. But yeah, that's definitely 2 points dropped for BTEC, especially at home.
Hmm. Right, and still no red cards. I don't know when my red card prediction is going to come good, but eventually. Next up, we have got Bolton Phoenix. So I think, who is this? Sean Davis. How did he not have a squad number? Okay, anyway. I just alter the squad number, so obviously there's no guarantees. Let's see, Bolton Phoenix. I've set Gary Neville as captain, and Nick Matulin is in goal. I think this is right. Yeah. I think that's right. Hoddesdon. Yeah, I've done the changes there as well, so that's all good. Okay, so Bolton Phoenix, Chris, I'll let you go first because of your history with the club. Um, different tactic than last week from Bolton. Sorry, the same tactic as last week from Bolton, but a little bit different to what we saw last season. Who's your key player in this formation? Is it Dacour? Will he eventually get something out of Raul? What's the story with Bolton this year?
I, I think his best players are still Veron and probably Kuehl actually in that formation. I mean, Dede and Zambrotta go, without any mention, but I think Ryan's done some terrific business bringing in Kuehl, Stam, Dacour for me.
Average.
Nothing special. I know he's rated on the game. Letting go of Alex was a big surprise. But he's obviously, I think Ryan's got a very, very, very solid base there. His sort of back five are absolutely phenomenal. Like I said, Dacour is probably the weakest of that five, in my opinion. And then going forward, getting Kuehl and Veron to bomb on. For me, I think, like you said, just Raul. He's another one of them. It seems weird that 0102 doesn't like the Galacticos team of Real Madrid. Like Ronaldo is hit and miss, Zidane's hit and miss, Raul's hit and miss. I think Montella's absolutely lethal. The only thing I'd maybe do with Ryan's team is I'd consider possibly playing Montella up top on his own and Figo in just behind or something like that.
Mm.
But I think he's spoiled for choice going forward, Ryan.
Yeah, he's got a few good
He's got a
players in
really
there.
strong
I think
team.
Raul scored last week, though, didn't he?
Sorry.
Oh, he did, yeah, I think.
Yeah, I think he got a goal, but he got a
Yeah.
So
goal.
maybe this is his year.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, last year certainly wasn't. I mean, he lifted the trophy at the end of the season, so you can't say anything to that. But yeah, he wasn't as good as he'd perhaps hoped. I think Veron really the key player for him last season, and he's obviously off to a good start as well. If we look at the Hornets side, so a couple of changes. I think it didn't really work with Hargreaves. I think in that central midfielder role, so he's playing Petrov there now. Kieran, what do you make of this lineup for Hornets? Craig has apparently dropped his standard CM formations 4-1-3-2 and these kind of things and gone with something a little bit more super leaguey.
Yeah, I like it. I think Joey Goodjanssen's a really good player. I just had him in one of my recent saves, and he's excellent, as well as Sean Davis, actually. I think they're both quite good. I think Lucio and Larson are quite good. Petrov can be really good in the game. He's obviously got the main man, Shigalko, up top. I think the spine of his team is pretty good. Willie Sanyol is excellent. Babiaro is really good in this day. I think he did quite well last year. And Frey's really good at the back. I think it's a really balanced team. I think it looks solid, and there's definitely threats going forward. Eto on his day is excellent. Chigalko, like as always, he got a goal last week. I think he's setting this team up. He wants to get the max out of Chigalko this year. Yeah, and it'll be really interesting to see if he does, because if we see Shigalko kind of get some of the goal numbers that we see in some of our home saves, it'll just be really interesting to have him finally get it in Super League. Because I'm not sure if he's ever done it in the time that I've been watching the Super League. So it'll just be really kind of interesting and cool to see if he can really get those numbers.
We can replicate that. Yeah, I can see. And Andrea says that Petrov, Gudjonsson, Davis not good enough to stop the Bolton midfield, which I'm guessing he refers to Kuhl and Veron there. But we'll see. Predictions range from. I was going to say range from. There's obviously only Alf going out with a 3-2 for Bolton Phoenix. Chris, home win for you in this one as well, or what do you reckon?
Yeah, definite home win. I think this will be 3-0 Bolton.
Kieran, you see any Hornets getting anything here? A goal, a draw, maybe?
Yeah, definitely a goal. I think maybe 2-1 Phoenix.
Well, we'll kick this one off. Oh, sorry. It'll be close.
Hoddesdon always write them off at your peril. When you think kind of they're in a bad run of form and you think, oh, this will be a good day for us, they can just come out with a really good performance. So I'd never write them off.
Right. Well, we'll kick this one off and see what happens in the first half. We should have everyone. Oh no, it's a home game. Just having to double check the speed. Okay, Bolton kicking off and good start from them. Kuhl 2 minutes in. A difficult start for Hoddesdon and Montella there with a goal. Etu firing one back, so 3 goals in the first 7 minutes.
Great game.
Yeah, I mean it's all happening in the Super League, but it does look very. That's Babayaro not feeling well. Not really spoiled for choice with regards to left backs, to be completely honest.
Unless you were to put Ljungberg on the left.
That's what I was just thinking, and then put David Dunn up there. That's probably. I mean, it's a bit of a risky one, but it'll be. I mean, even I can't play even El Guerra out there, can I? That would make no sense, I think.
You're the boss, Martin.
I think that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna try Freddy on that. Oh, that's cancel all changes.
Ryan said Sigalko at left back.
Yeah, but he's already just trolled about 9 people this evening. What are we doing? We're taking Babayaro off for Dunn, and then we're bravely throwing Ljungberg down on a left wing back. That's I mean, if Estebaria can do it and get like 8s and 9s for you last season, Kieran, I see no reason why Ljungberg can't do it for Hornets. It's not as if he's up against anyone particularly good in Sambrata or anything. So fingers crossed for. Oh gosh, there's Jaap Stam's injured as well. Fuck, I missed that. Did you see that?
No, I didn't.
Well, this is a little bit more straightforward. He's obviously got a like for like replacement. They must have run into each other or something like that. Okay, well that'll be interesting. That was a very very exciting first 20 minutes. Let's see if the rest of the game can live up to that. Oh, now it's gone back to that commentary speed again. Oof. Yellow cards, free kicks, headers, shots on goal. Tsigalko with chances, done. Another yellow. Freddie Ljungberg with a shot for some reason. Poof. I mean, it was a
Tense.
breathless first 20 minutes, and quite a few things happened in the rest of it as well. Let's have a look at the match report first and see what happened there in the 20th minute. Stam has got off youngest, but they must have run into each other or something like that. I don't know. Two people injured right at the same time. That's not every time you see that. Kieran Hornets, Joey Gudjonsson struggling a little bit against the who's he up against, Verong or someone like that, and Kewell and Frey's not having the best of games either in goal. Bit of a tricky first half for Hornets. I'm sure you would agree.
Yeah, the stats don't make for pretty reading, that's for sure. Yeah, like it looks like they're struggling to kind of get it forward, similar to a couple of teams we've seen previously. I think they've only had 2 shots. Yeah, Gudjonsson having a 5 is poor. Obviously, you want Frey doing better,
Mm,
but maybe it's a case of they're still in the game. Frey looks like he's made a mistake. So if Frey hadn't made the mistake, we could be looking at a an even game going into the second half. So they're definitely still in the game. But yeah, I think they just need to get on the ball a bit more and get Chigalko some chances. He hasn't had a shot yet.
yeah.
Just
Bit like Swindon in the last game, really, wasn't it? Like they've not had that
Yeah,
many
it
passes,
reminded
and
me of Swindon a bit. Yeah, just kind of, but similar to Swindon, you wouldn't count them out. There's
mhm.
goals in them. Eto's got one, and like when Chigalko's on the pitch, you can like. There's always a chance, especially now you've got Youngberg on the left. He's more attacking, arguably,
Yeah,
than Babiaro.
perhaps
David Dunn, I
struggling a little
think,
bit.
is a good player. He is struggling a little bit, getting used to the left-hand side, but yeah, look, we'll see what happens,
We'll see
but
what.
it was a very strong performance from Bolton in that first half.
Yeah, Chris, if you're looking at Bolton stats here, so assist for Raul, so he's definitely still doing quite well in his new position, and Kuehl, the new guy's doing pretty well too. Um, anything you want to add to the Bolton performance from the first half? I mean, they'd be a little bit gutted to give up a goal considering how well they've been playing, won't they?
Well, I mean, I'm just looking at the stats here, and you think Dede's done nothing, and Veron's been very, very quiet by his usual sort of passing standards. He's normally racked
Hmm.
up 25, 30 passes by now.
Yeah.
So I think I was maybe a bit sort of bullish in my prediction. I mean, there seems to be a proper war going on in the middle of the park, though.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
definitely.
not much playing going on. Like for the amount of passes that
Uh-huh.
they've had a lot of shots coming out of
Yeah,
those
that's
passes.
true. That's definitely true. But I mean, it's going to be a battle in the second half as well, and I can see Alf is.
Wayne Oldham reffing as well.
Yeah, Alf
He's
predicting a
back.
Alf predicting a red card. So let's see. I mean, it could go the same way as the other one, or Bolton could close the door shut, obviously. But we'll see. We'll see what happens in the second half if the first 20 minutes are as wild and crazy as the first half. Doesn't look like it so far, but obviously still all to play for. I've seen quite a lot of Raul and Montella. It seems as if they're working quite well together in that those two up front.
Yeah, it does seem to be working quite well. Although Hoddison are still in it.
Yeah, definitely. They're still creating.
I was going to say, has this got a bit of a 2-2 written all over it, or what?
Yeah, I mean, if Bolton can't find the goal, then I think Hoddesdon might surprise them right at the end.
Yeah, losing Stam is a big,
Oh,
big
Oh,
blow. Oh,
oh,
oh!
Tsigalko
oh,
penalty.
Wayne Oldham looking at his assistant as well.
Yeah. He didn't give it to begin with, but then the assistant was obviously flagging. Oh, and it stays 2-2. What a comeback from the
Jesus Christ.
Hornets. My goodness, Wayne Oldham playing a part in that, but not the way we would have expected. What happened there?
It's always about Wayne.
Verong sent Eto. Why is Verong tackling people in the penalty area anyway? Oh, that was never going to end well, was it? And just after Frey had a fantastic save. So yeah, I mean, much better from Hornets in the second half. Um, let's have a look. Fyife says something about surely a red. And let's see. Oh well, we don't know if he was the last man. Normally, I only presume it's a red when it's the keeper. So Kieran, looking at all these passes in the second half, Hoddesdon really came back, really came to life after the break. I mean, Lundberg at left back, perhaps not something we'll see again, but
No, but look, Youngberg did a job for him on the left. He was asked to do a job. He was unselfish. He took a spot on the left and just kept it going. You see, Chigalco was much more involved in that half. 3 shots, 2 on target.
mhm.
Youngberg was getting involved. He had 2 shots of his own, so it's not like he was doing nothing on that side. Just not much of a left foot.
Tackling
Um,
not a strong side either. With
Not his strong side. Um, but yeah, no, it was good. Joey Johnson not as good as we thought, but David Dunn came on and did all right. And
Mhm.
Samieto, Davis, and Chigalco, yeah, really, yeah, they dug in, got the draw, and after that second half performance, you'd say they deserve it, I think.
And as Al points out, Frey going from a 5 to an 8. Something else to point out is that Samuel Eto'o gets an assist and a goal and manages to get a 7, whereas Sean Davis, who okay, he had a million tackles, he gets an 8 as well. Let's have a look at the Phoenix stats and let's see who let the side down in the second half. Chris, you pointed out that Dede didn't do anything in the first half. That seems to be kind of the case in the second half as well for him. Not that's a little bit surprising out on that. I mean, Sagnol is a decent player, but he's not like he's not the best in the world, but he's managed to keep Dede quiet. Sambrata obviously having a bit more success against Ljungberg. How do you see that second half performance from Phoenix?
That's I'm quite surprised, to be honest. Obviously, I don't know if Ryan's given any instructions. Normally, you wouldn't want to take Veron off at any cost whatsoever. Potentially somebody like Dizer or Figo could have opened it up. I think losing Stam was a big blow early on. But yeah, very surprised that Dede and Zambrotta have been kept quiet by a makeshift fullback in Youngberg. And sorry, who's the Hodge fullback?
Sagnol is the right-handed
Sagnol.
side one.
You'd have backed both Dede and Zambrotta to get the better of Sagnol and Youngberg in that situation.
Yeah,
Obviously
but then a good performance from the Hornets keeper as well, obviously keeping them at bay.
Yeah.
The Raul and Montella striking partnership seems to work out okay though, despite not getting a second goal. They've done relatively well, so we'll probably see that two-man strike formation again. Just Verong really out of all of them that I would say is really kind of the standout. What happened there? Performance.
Gary Neville actually, for kind of, he's like a funny character, but he's actually been excellent in the game for Ryan. I think you'd be disappointed with him just getting a 7. I think he got a 9 in the last game. He's really got a tune out of Neville.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you say, Day is kind of similar to Zé Roberto in that respect. There's a host of excellent Brazilian wide left players, and he's up there with the best of them. So he's normally quite key to what Phoenix do. So yeah, he'll be really disappointed with his performance, I think.
Yeah, and that's another team losing their 100% record, along with
Yeah.
BTEC and along with BTEC.
Yeah,
Sorry,
Zanoni as well. Maybe struggling in that MC
MC
role when
role.
normally he
Yeah.
plays DMC. Maybe something to look at for Ryan.
Yeah, well, we'll see what Ryan comes up with for the next game. So very exciting finish to the game. I mean, a little bit of a dead second half compared to the first one, obviously in terms of action, but nice to get a bit of a dramatic moment there at the end. We're not quite going to Midlothian yet. We're going to Dragon Destroyers, and we're going to see what they can come up with. Let's see. I think I've done that as well. They've changed up their tactics slightly. I was just checking that and. Chotley, did I do that? Let's see. Yeah, it looks as if I'm just double checking. Only the most professional, what do you call it, production values here. I do have to double check this. Yeah, it looks good. It looks all good. Okay, excellent. Brazilian reserve goalkeeper. Dragon Destroyers. Right. Chris, what do you think about Dragon Destroyers? Their new formation, new players. They've changed. They played they scored 3 goals in the last game, yet they've changed their attacking formation to 2 strikers instead of instead of one and two AMCs. The rest of it kind of stays the same. What do you make to that attacking change? You think it's required, or was it for you? For you, did it look better with Keane and Brosek behind the single striker?
Um, I think I know why they've changed it. Obviously, the lads down at Dragons, they've lots of experience in the game. They know what they're doing. They've got track records that speak for themselves. I think if I've interpreted it right, I think what they tried to do here is maybe shore up a bit so that they can still score 2-3 goals again, but maybe not concede 3 or 4 like they did in the last one. I don't know. I'd have still maybe gone 2 in the AMC position because I'm not sure you can get a tune out of Michael Owen. But I do think that Jamie and Boise are doing well to get a tune out of this squad because let's be honest, if you look at that team, that squad on paper, there's no one single standout name jumps out at you apart from maybe Brozek. So the fact that they've got them scoring tons of goals already and whatnot, I think is sort of testament to the way they're tactically shaping the squad.
Mm. Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if Giggs can continue. He's obviously playing in a slightly different role. I think he had a good first game anyway, but he was very important for Dragons in the first season, or sorry, in the last
Have a
season.
look at Song Young Cook. Just interested myself. Oh, he's good, yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely not a bad player. Good teamwork stats and fairly quick, and marking is okay, positioning is okay, determination. I think it's also his versatility. I think he's either footed and he's got all of that, so he can play
Yeah,
everywhere
yeah, it
across
looks
here. He
good.
can probably play
I
the
kind of,
midfield as well. So
I definitely echo Chris's thoughts there on Owen. A couple of people have some comments that I got rid of Owen without replacing him. Lads, there's no replacing him. He's fucking shite. You're gonna see it in this game. With at risk of falling victim to the commentator's curse, Owen is awful.
he's going to be awful. Well, we'll see. We'll definitely see what he comes up with in this game. He's up against Hoopy and Rocket Jr. at the back for Chudley Cannons. Chudley, Kieran, they conceded 4 goals on Scott's debut in the Super League. He can't have been particularly happy with that, but it's a steep learning curve joining the league, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Look, if you catch any team on their day, you're liable to get thumped. I think they were a bit unlucky. I don't think they're probably worth a 4-0 defeat, but looking at their squad on paper now, it's really strong. I really like the look of it. Liverani's excellent, Van Bommel's excellent. Bauma is another one of those really strong left wingers. Didier Agath, I really like just from watching Celtic growing up. Thought he was a really good player. Amoruso is one of those players in the game that can get you bags of goals. Rossini showed last season he's excellent. And Extabaria seems to be really good in the game. So I think the spine of the team's really good. He's got there's plenty of goals there. Mark Kerr is excellent. Personally, I would bring Liverani back into his favoured DM position on the left side of Van Bommel there, and just go with Kerr on his
And
own
play
in the
with Kerr
middle.
by
Obviously,
himself.
that's just me just looking at that, but obviously he's going a bit more adventurous. This should be a great game. I like the look of both teams.
Dragons 3-1 according to Alf in this one. Sander Westerveld. It seems as if Scott on the base of the first game has inherited Tim's goalkeeper curse, unfortunately. But we'll see if Westerveld can do better tonight. Chris, home win, away win, draw. What are you going to go for with this one?
I don't think you can ever write the Dragons off. So I think this will be an entertaining game, 2-2.
And Kieran, for you?
I'm gonna say 3-2 to Chudley.
Interesting. Okay, well we'll kick it off and we'll see if Michael Owen can find the back of the net. We've done everything we can to talk him down, so it's it's up to him now to prove us wrong. Oh, this has gone strange as well. I mean, oh gosh, I can't see a thing with Chudley. Oof, Brosik got one ruled out for offside, I think it was.
Both teams are quite hard to read, I think.
Yeah, it's my least favorite matchup, to be completely honest.
Being colorblind as well, this is nightmare.
Even for people who aren't colorblind, this is not a great one. There is Brosek. He has started
Brosek
the season.
Looks really good.
That's
Really
him.
good.
Shevchenko didn't score in the first game, did he? So I think that's Brosek top scorer now with 3 goals. Because did he not have 2 last week?
Yeah, you too. That's four now.
Oof,
Or no,
and
that's on the
Kaladze with a
sim.
goal as well. My goodness, that's a definitely an impressive start for Dragons there. Let's have a look at the what was that? 7-3 and 6 on target to 1. Chris, your thoughts on that first half performance? Brosek obviously dominating with an assist and a goal. Tomasi as well with an assist. Michael Owen only getting a 7 and not hugely involved, but strong performance from Dragons. I'm sure you'd agree.
Yeah, very much so. Very, very efficient. They've not made millions of passes, but it's obviously going to the right places at the right time, and they're getting plenty of shots on goal. I mean, what have they had there? Is that 7 shots on goal? Um, or 6 shots on goal? Sorry, out of
6 on
7. So yeah,
target.
very, very efficient team. Like I said, I do think Jamie and Boyce will get a tune out of these boys.
And Brosek, I think. Let me just double check. Yeah, he did get 2 in the first, so he's definitely a top scorer in the league now. Estebaria, there was some talk about some hatred for Estebaria in the AMC role. That seems to continue. He did quite well there when last season, but it seems with the tactic that Scott has for him, that's not a place that that he enjoys. Getting a 5 there, Kieran. Anything else that we can point a finger at for with regards to Chudley? Mark Kerr, maybe?
Mark Kerr, yeah, and Liverani just don't seem to be working there in the middle of the park. Not getting Rossini in the game. Look, I think that was just dominant by Dragons. They were excellent in that half. Van Bommel's quite good. He's consistently great. Looks like he's working hard in the middle of the park as well. 6 tackles, 1 out of 10. Winning headers, key headers. Yeah, look, they've got danger. They've got dangerous men, as we talked about before the game. Bauma can put a cross in at any time. Extraburia can work miracles. So I wouldn't count them out, but it's looking pretty strong for
Pretty,
Dragons now for a win.
pretty grim first half for them. A few people calling for Gallardo maybe to play in that AMC role as well, instead of Estebaria. That's maybe something for the manager to consider. He's a decent player. I mean, Estebaria is not a bad player. His stats are pretty hardcore, but he got a 5 in his first game, and he's on target for another 5. So yeah,
Yeah.
so we'll see.
Nuke Leo in the comments remarked on Kaladze before, said he's a really good Milan player, so looks like he's got a keen eye for it.
Yeah, definitely. And Andrea saying that Gallardo works better in the MC role, so he could put him in there instead of Liverani, maybe if he wanted to play around and stick with his formation. Anyway, second half
Nugget of wisdom there.
yeah, we'll fire up for the second half, and we'll see if Dragons can continue, or if Chudley can continue the form of the away sides that we've seen in the last couple of games of finding a way back in, as both Hoddesdon and Swindon did. I mean, disallowed goal for Amoruso there. I was going to say it looks as if they've certainly got much more to say in the second half. Amoruso and Rossini combining again. Amoruso again. There's definitely chances coming
Point
from
saying Owen
Chudley.
to score, it won't happen.
That's Mark Kerr, definitely picking up in the second half performance-wise, with reducing the deficit. And there's Estebaria, who was slagged heavily as well. Now's the time when Dragons have to come back. Oh, and a Gat with my goodness! This is now the time when Dragons need to avoid what happened last week. Remember, they were leading against Ardsley and still went down 4-3, and now it looks as if they're going to lose by 1 again.
I think I called 3-2.
And there's Rossini with the 4th. What a second half performance from the Cannons.
Excellent.
And no goals for Michael Owen, unfortunately for him. I think that's what you call a turnaround in the second half. Fitness levels maybe better for Chotley Cannons. I'm not entirely sure where where this performance came from. Kieran, let's go to you first of all, because we had you on Chotley from the start. Rossini decided that enough was enough, and 2 assists and a goal for him.
Oh, what a performance in the second half. 4 goals. Yeah, Rossini was class. 2 goals, 2 assists. Just took the game by the scruff of the neck. Exaburia kind of showed his value to the team, getting a goal. Mark Kerr the same. Bauma, as I said, can always put in a cross. He looks like he's got an assist there. Didier Agas, I talked up before the game. Yeah, that's just an excellent performance. yeah, congratulations. That Dragons will be raging at that one.
I mean, and that's two defeats in two home games with not a good defensive record. So that may be something
Oh, and they played quite
because
well in both games, or for one and a half.
yeah, and still in this one, I mean, for the first, Chris, if I come to you for the Dragon side, they did okay in the first half and up until a point in the second, but it just looks as if the wheels just completely came off, didn't it?
Yeah, the only way I can describe it is, do you know when you're hungover in your 30s and you go to work and you're kind of like, oh, I'm all right here, I can get away with it. And then about 5 hours into your shift, everything just kicks in and it goes south. That's the only analogy I can think of. I mean, they were playing so well, they were
They've
controlling the
basically
ball.
turned up drunk to work.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me with the Dragon squad anyway. I mean, look at Viduka on a 6. He clearly needs testing.
Yeah, I mean,
That's a standard Verduka performance.
it was definitely a standard from the first half of the season last year. He really picked up towards the end of the season. I think he got 4 of his 5 goals in the last like 3 or 4 games or something. And he did have a good first game, but I mean, I'm surprised to see Robbie Keane not playing, considering that he was like club top scorer last season. But that's that it is what it is, and obviously they've got Brosek in definitely scoring goals as well. But to concede 7 goals in 2 home games, I mean, Dragons were one of the teams that conceded the fewest goals in the league last year, despite they just didn't score or win. And like we spoke about in the beginning, they were on the receiving end of some pretty unlucky results, draws that turned into defeats, and victories that turned into draws or worse. So yeah, it's been a difficult start for them. Performance wise, done really really well, but just defensively, there's just something that really absolutely is not working, because
Yeah,
that's 8 goals conceded actually in 2 games.
as you say, they were always within games. They were rarely beaten by 2 or 3. It was always the odd goal, and they were
Mm.
always in the game last year. But it seems like they've tried to be a bit more adventurous, potentially with Boyce's influence there. He likes going forward with the ball, but yeah, they're conceding a lot more goals this year.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what? For me, it's that tackles one stat. I wonder if any of the lads in holding midfield or at the back have got decent tackling stats.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
Songs on Cook, Simic.
Where do they play again? So let's say Kalatsa, Tomati, and Song Yong Cook not tackling well. Tomati and Kalatsa okay, but maybe, I mean, not a weak spot as such, because he did kind of okay, but that's not a lot of tackles from him. It was really down to Rustico and Simic at the back to dish out the tackles. In comparison, we've got, okay, Mark van Bommel. That's an unfair comparison, but he obviously did a little bit better. So
Yeah, but I
yeah.
mean, if you look at the centre halves, though, I mean, Roque Junior's won 90% of his tackle compared to the two at Dragons. I think was only about 50% between Rustico and
Yeah, and Simic.
Simic.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Yeah.
true, definitely. Yeah, interesting observation. It's something that hopefully, if they're watching, Boise and Jamie, then they can maybe have a look at the central defender instructions if that's the issue. But and Michael Owen, I mean, yeah, we might see him again. We might not. We'll have to wait and see. Right, we've got Kieran coming up next. I think we have Midlothian at home. I think I managed to do all of the. Yeah, I did. And for you, Kieran, it was Khan in goal, wasn't it? And Hersey on instead of
That's it. Not too
Robert.
many changes, making your life easy, Martin.
Yeah, it's all good. So Midlothian, well, I'll come to you, Chris, because obviously Kieran's the the other side. Midlothian has kind of dropped his funny arrowy position and the 5 at the back, and gone a little bit more attacking, if not much, in his home game. What do you make of this formation? It's something that you're familiar with. It still seems quite defensive.
Yeah, I was going to say I think it's defensive. And again, all credit to Kieran. You look at his front three and that the Churchtown's ability to score goals. If he was playing me this week, I'd definitely be looking at tinkering how many I've got at the back, just because of the sheer firepower he's got. So I think Ian's probably had that in mind. Try and give himself a bit of a solid base with Gattuso and Gerrard. So I can see why he's sort of gone narrow and a bit more defensive. It's not quite fighting fire with fire, but maybe more fire with a fire blanket.
Yeah, he is trying to kind of throw that over the attacking 5 guys. Four, is it 4 or 5 you've got now? You're only doing 4 attackers at the moment. I forget. You're going all defensive now. Yeah, so
Just
he's
for
definitely trying to to cover that up. I mean, he'll hate me for pointing that out. Karsten Ramelov was his highest rated player last season, and he's not
I
getting
was
a
going to
game.
bring it up. It's
It's
harsh on him. I mean, Gerard and Gattuso are class.
yeah. I mean, look at Gattuso's stats. It's not because he's a bad player,
Yeah,
but
What about
and neither is
Gerard though?
Gerard.
Isn't Gerard another one who's just sixes and sevens on pretty much everyone's home serves? He never really rips it up, does he?
he's been quite good for me now, I must say. He's done really well for me.
Yeah, I mean he's not. I don't think he's that bad a player, but he's. I mean I think he's ever present for Liverpool unless you buy him. I think he just kind of stays at Liverpool and does relatively well. He's obviously more defensive in the game than he was really in his also in real life later on in his career. But yeah, I think fairly solid. But yeah, it's interesting to see how he gets on tonight, and interesting how to see this the new boy who's come in instead of what you
He
call him,
looks good.
Julash. So there's some 20s in there.
Look at that tackling stat, only 10.
Only 10 in
Marking is only 10.
marking, positioning, and tackling. Only 10. So that's obviously not the strongest. I thought he's a
Martin,
bit more of a wing back, but
are you devastated not to see back in at number 10 role there?
yeah, I mean backs not
Your
back,
favorite player?
backs on the bench. I mean, after all the work I put in scouting, suggesting players, and Ian picking him up, I think he's on the bench. I don't think he's I mean he's not played bad, but I don't think he's gotten out of him what he thought he might get out of him. So that's probably why he's on the bench. And I think he wants to see Alex, and Alex is not a bad player. However, Kieran, let us talk through your side. So Oliver Kahn is back. Obviously, Chilavert didn't get a free kick or a penalty to put away in the last game, unfortunately. But we might see him again later on in
We'll,
the season.
we'll see him again. We've talked about this, Martin. We'll see him again.
True, and you found space for Yusuf Hersi today. He didn't
He's
feature
a
a whole lot last season. One game.
no, just once. Yeah, I want to give him a bit more, a few more chances this year. He can be a really good player. I think we just need to develop his stats a bit. So yeah, we'll give him a go today. See how he gets on. Robin only got a 7 in the last game, so I chop and change Robin a bit. He is a class player. He's done quite well, but I think I'm hopeful that Hersey comes through today. He's got 3 quality operators in front of him, a strong leader in Barry Ferguson behind him, and the 3 DMCs have been pretty solid for me pretty much throughout. And Maldini and Thuram are there, so I think what I've gone for is it's just a strong spine of the team there, and I hope Hersey can kind of knit
Hmm.
it all together with a bit of flair, a bit of class.
And
Yeah,
possibly
to be fair, Kieran, that spine is absolutely ridiculous.
Khan, Maldini, Thuram, Davids, Ferguson, then Hersi. Okay, he's maybe like let's say the weak spot because he's still quite young.
Barachinsky's
But
been so good. He was like almost like an 8 average or something
I was
last
gonna
year.
say, yeah. And he's probably, if we're looking at the stats, you do have quite a strong squad. If we look at his stats, he's probably your worst player. Like if you add it up, if you just add the total up of all his individual like attribute numbers, I think he's probably one of your worst players on that. But he must have them in the right spaces, the ones that he does have his 20 in marking and 18 in tackling and high work rate and things like that. So it doesn't really matter that he's got low creativity, dribbling, finishing, influence. There's some that are not as high as many other players. He's not the fastest either, but he definitely does a job for you.
Yeah. Andreas asking about Mike Duff. No, I'm just sticking consistent with the narrow formation for the minute. It worked well last week, but don't worry, you will see him on the pitch soon.
Yeah, you're saving him and Coco for the fullback formation. I gather
Yeah,
from earlier on. Yeah. Okay, but
is Headman playing for Midlothian? Sorry, I didn't notice that.
is
Or
he?
is it given
Headman
back
is a
now?
calamity on 0102. I've
Is
never
he?
known him not to see tons of goals.
I'm gonna have to double check that. I hope I haven't done this wrong. I'm gonna be in trouble then.
No, you're grand, I think. But God, if he goes off though, Shea didn't
No,
do
he's
well
right.
half
No,
time.
Shea Given. No, remember he doesn't have Shea Given. Shea Given. Do you remember why he doesn't play Shea Given?
Why?
Because he wasn't he the one who came on and conceded
Oh
4
yeah,
goals.
that's what I was talking about. Yeah, he'll be
Yeah,
having
yeah.
PTSD looking at this game.
Right, well, let's kick this one off. That's enough chat already. Jerry Connolly is in charge of his third game this evening. He is a strict referee, so we could obviously see red cards. But let's kick this one off. I'm sure Ian will be hoping that it's not for his keeper. Oh, he's still on last year's speed as well.
Never mind his strictness. I want that lad's stamina. 3 matches.
Yeah, he's doing quite well. It's one of the interesting things about the game. We spoke about him. We spoke about him in the build-up, Soroczynski. He's definitely been a key player for Georgetown and continues to be a key player for them. Clearly, looks as if Midlothian are. I'm gonna do a commentator's curse here and say they're struggling to create. And then they get a couple of chances just here. Oh, yellow card for Ferguson there. They were struggling to create. I think they came into it a little bit better here towards the end of the first half, but overall not a great first half performance from them. Chris, let's have a look at their stats here. Not getting the ball forward enough, are they? Really? I mean, what are we looking at? So
sorry,
few.
mute again.
That's all right.
Yeah,
so few touches.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think they're the worst passing stats we've seen all night, actually. And I do wonder if they're just set up to sort of defend and try and nick a point.
I mean, Gattuso having almost more tackles than he has passes. That's not. I mean, it's great for him that he's good at tackling, although he's only like winning 50% of them. But still, I mean, to have 9 tackles and 9 passes, I mean, that's doesn't matter how many tackles you get in a game. You shouldn't have more tackles than passes, should you? Really?
No, not really, unless you are setting up to defend and try and nick a point, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I guess. Yeah, I suppose there are some half decent performances in there. Hofland is doing okay. Gattuso doing okay. Jared doing relatively okay. Good. Got a couple of key passes in, and obviously got a 7 there. But yeah, it's not really firing on all. Are there arrows on the fullbacks? Yeah, short ones. I'm sure. Yeah, there's short arrows on the fullbacks. And they're not doing too badly actually. The fullbacks are probably some of the slightly better ones. Kieran, if we have a look at your side, I mean, you're not going to be looking at the scoreline. You might be relatively happy, but looking at the performances, maybe leaves a little bit to be desired as well.
Yeah, not great. Just Larson and Soroczynski kind of standing out. Yeah, it seems like it's a bit of a battle in there, to be honest. Looks like we've had a little bit better of it in the first half, but no, we'll have to work hard in the second half to finish the job, I think. Thuram and Maldini with 6s seems a bit low, but
yeah, I mean,
that's probably because they've had nothing to do, Kieran.
Yeah, it's difficult. Yeah. It's difficult if you're not winning a bunch of tackles, but then it's kind of difficult
but
for.
If they have nothing to do, what's going on in the game?
Yeah, it seems as if no one really has anything to do. It's like the what was it, Austria against Germany in some kind of old World Cup where they both teams can benefit from a draw or whatever it is. Maybe that's what playing itself out here. With this formation, Chris, anyway, back in this for Midlothian. I suppose if you're only down by 1, and they have had a shot on goal. I suppose they could get one back.
They could do, but I can't see it happening. I mean, they have been the poorest of all the sides at half time who I've written off and then have come back and won anyway. So I'll probably end up with yet more egg on my face. But I think this game could just sort of fizzle out even more and sort of finish 1-0, 2-0 time.
Right. Well, I'm not going to ask you, Kieran, because I'm presuming that you're going to hope that you win. I'll just kick off the second half, and we'll see if we get some goals or some action, some controversy. There's a couple of people on yellows already, 4 yellow cards already handed out, so we could see. I'm still waiting for that red card. I obviously hope that no one gets red card. I shouldn't hope for that, but it always makes a good talking point anyway. Oh, Van Nistelrooy, with half an hour to go, that should be pretty much sealed. Although they are getting maybe 1 or 2. Am I being generous, or are they getting a couple of chances now? It doesn't really look like they're going to be dangerous Midlothian, to be honest. Nope. Stays 2-0. Away win there. As I mean, a tough start to the season. Midlothian playing the first and third place teams in the league, although they were at home. And Gattuso perhaps surprisingly getting man of the match. He did manage to up his passing game a little bit in the second half, but too defensive for my liking, really, from a home team. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree, Martin. I think when you're at home, regardless of the opposition, you've got to have a go, haven't you? You've got to at least try and get on the scoreboard. But yeah, just overall a very very flat performance from Midlothian, I think.
And if we look at the tackles as well, we spoke about that in the last game. Was it the last game as well? Novotny winning 2 out of his 5. Roberto Carlos winning 2 out of 5. Felix Etienne winning 1 out of 4. It's really only Kevin Hoffland that can sort of be be proud of what he's done and look himself in the mirror, really, with regards to a defensive display, isn't it? I mean, I know Novotny getting an 8, but I have no idea why, apart from winning some headers, I guess. And attacking, I mean, I guess they could have scored one early on in the second half and perhaps, dragged it home, scraped it home, whatever the result. But uh, I mean, good, kind of good defensively, but sacrifice the attacking options. Although he's up against a very strong side that finished third in the league last year. Yeah, Kieran, let's have a look at your guys. I take it you're delighted with the 2-0 win.
Yeah, absolutely over the moon. Midlothian are so strong. Like they should have beaten us probably in the playoffs last year. Bit of luck with Headman getting sent off, but yeah, that's a much better second half performance. Those stats are way up. Looks good. Yeah, good to see Van Nistelrooy on the score sheet. Ferguson, Larson, and Elizadebe look really good again. Igor Tudor has actually been a revelation from Bolton. That was a swap that I think has gone quite well for us. We got him kind of mid-season last year. He probably didn't get as many games as I wanted to give him,
Mm-hmm.
but quite recently he's been excellent. So I'm really happy with that.
Five games and 3 assists. That's pretty good for a defensive midfielder. But
Yeah,
he
and it
didn't get
kind of
much
gives us
game
that
time
bit of
out there.
versatility there as well. A couple of games last year where we're kind of, I think we Davids was injured and we had a couple of other niggles,
Mm-hmm.
and Welsh was still a bit green in the face, so we just kind of wanted to bring in a little bit of experience there. But yeah, no, I'm delighted with how that went. Can with an 8 as well, and a clean sheet away from home is nothing to turn your nose up at. So yeah, I'm absolutely delighted with that performance.
Yeah, and 3 shots they had on target in the end, which could have been enough for a single goal, perhaps with a lesser keeper in there. So important that Khan came back and did well. That brings us to the last game of the evening. So we've got Palmerthinaikos, and I believe I'm correct in saying an unchanged Palmerthinaikos side.
Yeah, very much so. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
And a 4-0 win, you can't knock that, can you really? So let's have a look at your side here. We kind of spoke about it already in the introduction, but you didn't feel the need to try someone instead of Henri or anything like that. Romedal perhaps also not the
No, I mean,
best.
I'll give him a couple of games. I mean, I won 4-0, so I think it'd be a bit harsh to change, and I don't think anybody scored a 6.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see how I get on. Obviously, this game's going to be against a sort of tougher team in the middle of the park. I think Thiago's squad are obviously well stacked in the middle and up top. So hopefully, Cannavaro and Udeze can work just as hard as they did last week. And yeah, we'll see how we get on. But if anything significant changes about this week's performance, then yeah, I'll obviously look to shake up some of the squad.
Mm-hmm. And it is quite an attacking formation as well, maybe away from home, but we'll see what happens once you go away. Kieran, Hooligans, a little bit like Alf, they've reverted to the tried and tested formation that Thiago started last season with. I think he changed to a back two with 3 DMCs at some point because he had so many injuries to his defensive players. But Emerton is back in for Mendieta. Elias is playing. West, Samuel Campbell, Aymar, Kennedy is staying on because he's the only player who's actually scoring, and Santa Cruz and Salas up front. What do you make of
Yeah,
Hooligans?
yeah, I think that looks a little bit better. Good to see Brett Emerton there. I think he was mentioned in last week's show. To bring him in, he's excellent in the game. He's a bit of another kind of assist machine, kind of regularly coming in with 8s and 9s when you get a good tune out of him. I think another player that was mentioned last week, and I'd also like to see him, is Elber. Is he still at Hooligans? Because
He
he can be
is.
excellent in the game.
He is, but he's a
That
little
being
bit sad at
said,
the moment for some reason.
okay, it's a bit sad. Okay. Santa Cruz, Salas is very good. I don't know if I rate Santa Cruz that highly. But Ronaldinho is excellent. And yeah, look, we know what we'll get with Thiago. Sometimes you
Hmm.
get a ton of goals for him. Sometimes they can concede a lot. So let's see what happens. It kind of depends if Kennedy and Ronaldinho turn up.
Yeah, that's true. Rocket Santa Cruz, as everyone who plays the game probably knows that. I mean, depends on what version you play. If you use 3.9.68, you will for sure know that Rocket Santa Cruz becomes European top scorer. I don't know, 6 years in a row or something like that. In some saves, but this is obviously a previous version, and he hasn't maybe done so well. Definitely not for Art. I think it was Ardsley that had him in. And see, did he even play for Ardsley? Yeah, he came in 3 games and did nothing for Ardsley, so it'll be interesting to see. Anyway, we'll kick this one off. Chris, I'm not gonna ask you. Kieran, home win, away win. How do you see that one going?
Home win 3-0, I think.
Oof,
Thank you very much.
you're back in
Not a
Palmerthinaikos. Well,
problem.
we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what the Brazilians have to say to that.
Let's batter these favela dwellers.
Let's have a look. Good start for Kennedy.
Hello.
He's
Say.
oh, instant karma. And Thierry Henry. Now you're gonna have to. Now you're gonna see what your other strikers are made of. So that's an early, not the best start for Palmerthinaikos, we will say. Why does it do that? I already changed that. Yeah. See, Elias.
Oh my goodness.
It's all gone Pete Tong.
Big luck, eh?
Yeah, it's not good to come on as co-commentator when your team's playing. I do have to say that, but not normally anyway. Just not breaking them down at the moment. Oof, and Kennedy again. Kennedy. I mean, I spoke about Soroczynski having not the greatest attributes in the game, but look at this fella. Has he even got a 17 anywhere? He's got 18 for technique. That's about it. The rest is not good. But he's very, very effective for Hooligans, definitely. How many goals? 12 goals he got last season. Kieran, you first. Good strong
Yeah,
performance for Hooligans there. Kennedy
really good.
keeping
Yeah.
keeping his space. As you mentioned, the attackers perhaps not really living up to expectations. How did they get a 7 based on that performance?
Uh, that's a fantastic kind of opening performance. Just kind of blew Palmerthinaikos away. West has been excellent, kind of keeping it solid at the back. Emerton an assist, he gets loads, and Kennedy a goal and assist. Yeah, like I said before, like he's Thiago's main goal threat coming from midfield.
Hmm.
Ronaldinho has been pretty poor, which you rarely see. Um, and Salas and Santa Cruz just have been pretty anonymous, to tell you the truth. 6 touches between them.
Hmm.
That's pretty shit.
Sol Campbell also
Uh,
not getting much of the ball, but I think he's in the
yeah,
middle of that three.
at
Is
least
he?
he's
Oh no, he's on the
winning.
right. Oh my
He's
goodness.
winning. He's winning his headers though, so that's
Oh, that's
okay.
okay.
But
And
yeah, it's a solid performance, clean sheet. Away at Palmer, who won 4-0 last week. Thiago will be delighted with that.
let's have a look at Palmerthinaikos. Chris, talk us through the first half.
Dog shit.
Yeah, well, seems like a relatively fair session.
Yeah, pardon my French. I don't know. It's like we can't. I mean, again, I'm looking at the passing stats, and I think I've probably Button Poe getting overrun by that midfield of Thiago's. Riquelme has been on the ball all right. He's done okay. I think Romadal and Cole are a bit isolated as well. Not really doing much. I think probably a bit too much hubris on my account, thinking the formation would be all right against a narrow one. But lesson learned. I think Hools have got this game wrapped up now, if I'm honest. I can't see us scoring.
Well, you
I think it'll
can.
finish 2 or 3-0. No, I
I was-
can't. I can't see us scoring. I think our formation is just too easily picked apart against a narrow formation with a quality of players Thiago's got.
Yeah, I mean, it looks as if he doesn't even need to give the ball to his strikers. I'm still baffled by Kennedy to be completely honest. I'd hate see what if that's the formation, then I would hate to see what would happen if you played like Ronaldinho or someone decent in that spot. I mean, that would be terrifying, wouldn't it? But well, we'll see what happens in the second half. We'll kick this one off. Looks as if we're gonna go the whole evening without a red, so that's always something for the managers involved, obviously. Dennis
Oh,
Romadal after I
hello.
slacked him off. It's definitely been a game of two halves in most of the games that we've seen so far tonight, or in at least in half of the games we've seen so far tonight. So nope.
Oh,
A quick second half with nothing really from the hooligan side, but a bit of a comeback from Palmerthinaikos. But unfortunately, for them, they just couldn't make it. Dennis Romadal getting a 9. Okay, well maybe he can play again next week. We'll see. Romadal definitely doing well. You would have perhaps hoped for a second goal based on that performance, Chris, but much better in the second half from your side.
yeah, definitely much better. But again, I think the key for me is looking at button power. They've just not put enough passes together. Neither's Riquelme, and I've probably just been overrunning in the middle of the park, really.
I mean, there is obviously a risk of that. We had that conversation many times last season, whether a wide, good formation is better than a super narrow formation, and it kind of sort of seemed to hinge on whether you can get your wingers playing when you're up against that super narrow. And although Romadal did quite well, there may be a little bit far forward, or I don't know. Anyway, Nedved could have done better, obviously as well. But being a bit lonesome in the middle maybe has something to say as well. Kieran, hooligans, what do you make of their second half performance? Just a professional performance, just conceding the one and seeing it out.
Yeah, they dug in and yeah, got to the final whistle and got the 3 points. Decent stats, not incredible. I think you'd say Aymar and Ronaldinho with sixes is pretty rare. Less than 10 touches for the strikers. Uh, God, you never see that. But yeah, they didn't get a shot. I don't think in the second half. I think they were 5 shots. So yeah, they were hanging on. But look,
Yeah.
Close did a good job and they hung on in the end. So hats off to the Hools. Hard luck there, Maka. But
Yeah.
yeah.
An away win is an away win, I guess, and hooligans based on the fact that they did appallingly in the second half of last season, and they had that defeat in the first game of this season. So they'll be Thiago will be pleased with this. Perhaps not with the performance of his front four players, but the rest of them seem to be doing relatively well anyway. That kind of brings us to the end of the action there. So some interesting results, a bunch of away wins. It was a difficult night for the home sides. Astor Athletic being the only home side who ran out as a winner there tonight. And I guess we can have a look at the table. I mean, it's obviously early days, but the top three look eerily familiar, I think. Kieran, you're pleased to be where you are, I guess. Two home games, 2 wins.
2 away games, two
Two
wins.
away games, 2 wins. Yeah.
Yeah, delighted. Yeah, our away form dragged us up the table last year, and it looks like it's going to be more the same this year. Valen have looked incredibly strong in their opening games, not conceding a goal yet. Very stingy defence. Swindon only conceding 1 goal in 2 games. That's basically unheard of.
That's pretty spectacular.
Yeah, I think they were up at like 10 goals or something at this stage last year. BTEC and Palmer, BTEC and Palmer looking good. Yeah, Bolton, they're the reigning champs. They're always going to be difficult. And yeah, the middle of the table, eerily familiar. Astor, Chudley, Hooligans, Ardley, just around there.
Yeah, that's the same. And down at the bottom, Dragons, Midlothian, and Sloth still to pick up a point. I mean, especially concerning I would say for Dragons and Midlothian, considering did they have two? Midlothian they had 2 home games, didn't they?
Yeah, they
Yeah,
did.
both Dragons and Midlothian have had 2 home games. Midlothian haven't even scored yet. That's considering how, how
Yeah,
how well Ian had them playing towards the end of last season and actually got into that playoffs. I know that we spoke a little bit about he was the best out of a bad lot to squeeze in, but still 36 points is decent. So he'll be disappointed with that start.
yeah. And his home form was fantastic last year. You'll remember he didn't have an
Yeah, yeah.
away point for well into the middle of the season last year, but his home form was top class, winning almost every game. But
Mm.
yeah, he's going to need to do it away from home based on these first two games.
Yeah, everyone points out, as we spoke about when the game was ongoing as well, that it was against you and Balin, so it wasn't exactly the two easiest home games of the season that he had. But still, it's a little bit, as mentioned, it was a little bit too defensive. I think if you're dependent, regardless of who you're up against, it would obviously be nice to come away with 2 points from those two games, but to not even have scored a goal is a little bit concerning, I would say. But anyway. Chris, you would have felt as if you've kind of maybe should have had a little bit more than the 3 points after the first two games. Just
Yeah,
thinking
I
of that
was
hooligans
hoping.
performance.
I mean, after the big win last week, and then seeing I'd got Hools this week, I did think my formation with a width would be better, and I'd be sitting pretty on 6 points. But we know we live and learn.
Mm-hmm.
Not too bad. It's a decent start. I'd have probably took 3 points if you'd have offered it me after 2 games anyway, just to see how we got on. But yeah, at least you learn a couple of things, and I'm not the worst side in the league by any stretch.
No. Right, just quickly before we have a look at the fixtures for next week, if those watching on YouTube, they might have spotted something in the top right-hand corner. It disappeared quite quickly. I think I've screwed up the timer on it on some of the sponsor banners, but either way, maybe you've seen it. It's an ESF banner. I'll let French people pronounce it. In English, we would say Coaches Without Borders. It's a bit of a play on word on the whole Doctors Without Borders thing. So Flo and I, who's in the chat, are trying to do something with a save game that's going to go around the world. So watch out for news with regards to that. Can't reveal too many details, mostly because I haven't prepared properly because I was out in the sunshine for about 4 hours when I could have been camping. But there we go. But that'll be something for you guys to look out for. I think you'll be interested and you'll be curious to find out more about it. So that's it. Quick look at the fixtures for next week. I'll have a look at you guys first. Kieran, you're at home to Dragons. That's a nice one for you, isn't it? It's a team that can't defend and you're playing them at home.
Oh yeah, but our home form is just so inconsistent. So no, not taking it lightly. Dragons have had a pretty good start for losing 2 games. To be honest, they've been pretty unlucky, especially in that first game. They're Brozek scoring a lot of goals. I hope they play Mike alone. I hope they bring him back to Dublin and we'll give him a good reception. But yeah, look, that's going to be a tough game, and we'll have to play our best to get a result there.
Mm-hmm. And Palmerthinaikos away to Sloths. That's a chance for 3 points, isn't it? Considering Sloths to start to the season, you should be winning that. You would have guessed, maybe
Yeah,
thought.
I'd certainly say I was favourites with the bookies, but I've got a few decisions to obviously make during the week, and fuck knows what Rob's going to do with his formation this time. So, yeah, I guess I'd still, I think, with all due respect, no matter what, I'd still back myself there to get 3 points. We should do against arguably the worst team in the league at the minute.
Mm-hmm. And other interesting ones, we've got free scoring Chotley with their 4 games in the second half, battling Ardsley, who got 4 goals in short time in their first game against Dragons. So they're up against each other. It's the battle of the super narrow. Oh no, it's not. Hooligans are below them. I was going to say it's the battle of the super narrows, but it's not. It's Hornets that's home to Asta. So that'll be a test for Alpha and his formation. Hooligans with their narrow formation at home to Midlothian. Midlothian need to be careful there. I think if they don't have many players in the middle of the park and the fullbacks aren't creating anything, as they haven't really been doing in the first 2 games, that's going to be a tricky one. We've got a top 4 clash between Swindon Devils and Bolton Phoenix. Probably not many people who thought that would be said in that way prior to the season, but yeah, both teams on 4 points, and that'll be interesting to see who comes out on top there. And then a true test for BTEC as they travel to Sweden to face Valen United, who've gotten off to a pretty decent start to the season. We'll finish off by having a quick look at the top scorers. I think it's Brosek. Oh, that's the wrong one. I think Brosek. Nakata, has he played 2 games? No, he's only played 1. I was going to say goals is Brosek is already ahead. Shevchenko is following him. Tsigalko now. Kennedy's in there. Who's had the assists? Tomadera with 2 assists. Nakata 2. Shevchenko as well. Shevchenko, who I gave a hard time last season, is definitely starting to pick up some form this season. And yeah, with 2 goals and 2 assists already, he could be challenging Barry Ferguson for the combined goals and assist total if he keeps this up. guys, thank you very much for your time and for joining us this evening. It was a pleasure to have you along for your expertise and your comments. Thank you to everyone who's watching. I'm pretty sure I saw there was like more than like 20 people watching at some point, which is pretty unheard of. So thanks very much. And yeah, that just leaves me to say good night, Chris, and thank you very much.
No worries. Cheers, Martin. Thank you.
Good night, Kieran, and the same to you. Thank you very much for your time and your comments.
Thanks very much. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Thanks very much, and good night.